On our wedding night, Qin Shuyang refused to lift my red veil. His voice was cold as he said, "I married you only out of necessity. I will not touch you, and you must not." I tore off the veil in one swift motion and met his gaze. Qin Shuyang's nose started bleeding at the sight of my face. He fumbled flusteredly for a handkerchief to wipe it, and I kindly reminded him, "That's my handkerchief you're holding." Qin Shuyang froze mid-movement. I took it by mistake. He rummaged frantically in his sleeve, only to pull out my sweat cloth, my belly band, and one of my silk stockings. Tumbling out right after the stocking was a menstrual pad. Qin Shuyang's face flushed bright red, and he stammered in a panic, "It's not mine. You're going to say someone stuffed my intimate clothes on you, aren't you?" Qin Shuyang nodded hastily. My expression remained calm. I know. I guessed it was the Duke's wife who'd believed in some folk remedy on the wedding day. Tucking the bride's intimate garments on the groom would break a wife-killing curse. She'd hidden them on him behind his back, afraid he'd refuse. A long silence fell. Qin Shuyang finally stemmed the nosebleed, regained his wits, and stared at me with a dazed, infatuated look in his eyes. I asked flatly, "Aren't you going to the study?" He cleared his throat awkwardly. Shall I see you off?" I frowned. I was exhausted after the whole day's fuss and only wanted to rest at once. But Qin Shuyang's gaze grew hotter and hotter by the second. I'd always been blessed with a beautiful face, and today I was dressed in my wedding finery, hardly his fault for losing control. Watching his nosebleed threaten to start again, I ordered the guards directly, "Take your young master to the study." The guard, caught off guard, stared blankly, and prepare a basin of cold water for him to splash on his face. With Qin Shuyang sent away, I washed up and lay down on the unfamiliar bed. A sudden stinging in my eyes. I never thought I'd really marry Qin Shuyang. I'd seen him once before our betrothal. He'd been talking about the marriage with his friends then, his tone icy. "You all know I'm loyal only to Qingxue. I'll never agree to this marriage. But I've seen your fiancée once. She's exceedingly beautiful, gentle and refined, a lady of letters." Qin Shuyang scoffed. "Beautiful? No matter how lovely she is, she doesn't hold a candle to Qingxue. I'll never touch her. I'll keep my body pure for Qingxue. If it weren't for your wife-killing curse, your mother wouldn't have begged the Empress Dowager for this imperial betrothal." Qin Shuyang's face turned so black it could drip ink. "This wife-killing nonsense is a lie. It's just an excuse to wait for Qingxue. He had a beloved, and he refused to touch me, perfect, who hadn't loved someone once. If not for my own heart's desire, why would I have deliberately spread rumors of being a husband killer? Only to accept the Empress Dowager's imperial betrothal, too." I rose early the next day for the new bride's tea ceremony. Reluctant as he was, Qin Shuyang had to be dragged by the steward to wait for me outside the courtyard gate. I walked over slowly. "Husband." At the word, Qin Shuyang shot me a glance, his earlobes flushing bright red as he averted his eyes quickly, his voice cold. "Taking your sweet time, making this young master wait for you. Do you really think you're the young mistress now? Daring to put on airs with me, from now on?" As he spoke, I stepped forward, leaving only a retreating figure for him to stare at. In the main hall, my grandmother and parents-in-law sat upright, and the maids had already prepared the tea. Grandmother smiled warmly, taking my hand and Qin Shuyang's, folding them together. "You two are a match made in heaven, talented and beautiful. Live well together from now on, and give me a great-grandson soon." The large hand covering the back of mine was burning hot, slick with sweat. It was late autumn. How could he be so hot? I smiled obediently. "I understand, grandmother." I tried to pull my hand away at once, but a drop of red suddenly fell on my wrist. I turned my head to look, and my heart skipped a beat. "Husband, your nose is bleeding again." I reached for my handkerchief instinctively to wipe it for him, but the more I wiped, the worse the bleeding got. I was a little flustered. Looking up at him helplessly, Qin Shuyang froze, his eyes fixed unblinkingly on my hand. I hurried, "Husband, have you seen a doctor for this ailment?" Grandmother chuckled, the knowing smile of someone who'd been there. "No need for a doctor for this." She turned to my father-in-law. "Tell Shuyang to rest at home for a few more days before returning to his duties." My father-in-law nodded with a smile, seeing no one took it seriously. I figured it was no serious illness and breathed a silent sigh of relief. Gently pulling my hand back, I tried to wipe the sweat from my forehead, only to find my handkerchief was too soiled to use. 3. After the tea ceremony, Qin Shuyang walked with me to the garden, saying he wanted some fresh air. I headed back to my courtyard with my maids, but halfway there, I remembered the handkerchief. Even if it was ruined, I ought to get it back and burn it. I turned back to the garden, only to hear Qin Shuyang talking with his male cousins in the family. His younger cousin teased him. "Cousin, why did your nose start bleeding the second you touched your wife's hand?" Qin Shuyang's face darkened as he glared at him. "How should I know? Her hand is as soft as if it has no bones." His married elder cousin laughed. "You've spent over a decade buried in books, with only young male servants waiting on you. It's only natural you've had no contact with women." Qin Shuyang's dark face flushed red. "I've met plenty of women. She's no different from any other noble young lady. Just a softer hand, a sweeter scent, a prettier face, a little gentler to me, a sweeter smile, that's all." His voice grew quieter and quieter as he spoke. His cousins, "Shuyang, it's only the second day of your marriage. Don't tell me you've already fallen for her." Qin Shuyang retorted loudly, "Impossible." "Good. Don't let her beauty cloud your judgment, though if you do, it's fine, you're already married to her anyway. But don't end up like your elder cousin. A henpecked husband who calls it prosperity comes from loving one's wife." Qin Shuyang declared at once. "I'd never." His elder cousin clapped him on the shoulder, the wise air of a married man. "Take your elder cousin's advice, be good to her. She's just married into the family, everything is strange to her, and this is when she needs her husband the most." His younger cousin grinned. "Exactly, better yet. Learn from your elder cousin. When your sister-in-law said she craved sugar-fried chestnuts, he ran all over the capital in the freezing cold to buy them for her in the middle of the night." The elder cousin preened. "My wife only likes the ones I buy. Chestnuts from anyone else taste bland." "You're just a kid, you wouldn't understand." "I don't understand how letting those 2 locks of hair fall makes you look any less a minister of rights. To me, you look more coquettish than the pretty boys in the brothels." The elder cousin rolled his eyes at him. "See, you don't understand. It's the most fashionable hairstyle for handsome men these days, playing the Qin under the moon, the breeze blowing through the hair. You have no idea how much my wife loves it." His younger cousin made a face, fighting off goosebumps, then spotted the handkerchief in Qin Shuyang's hand. "Shuyang, why are you keeping this blood-stained handkerchief?" "Obviously because I can't bear to throw away something of my wife's." Qin Shuyang twitched the corner of his mouth, hiding the handkerchief behind his back, and snapped. "Nonsense. It's just that she kindly wiped my nosebleed for me, so I plan to wash it and return it to her. But I waited for days. And Qin Shuyang never returned the washed handkerchief. Perhaps he'd forgotten. After Qin Shuyang slept in the study for a few nights, my mother-in-law sent for me to talk. She brought up the matter in roundabout terms, urging me to bear heirs for the Fu family. That night, Qin Shuyang returned to the main courtyard. I sat in front of the vanity, drying my hair. Qin Shuyang frowned as he studied me, a faint anger in his eyes, as if he thought I'd complained to his mother. Forcing him to come back here to sleep, I tossed my almost dry hair over my shoulder and stood up, walking toward him. He stepped back 2 steps abruptly, his cheeks flushing, and snapped coldly, "Shameless, indecent." I glanced down at my fully clothed, tightly laced robe, then at his slightly unbuttoned chest. "Really? Who was the indecent one here? No matter what you said to Mother, I'm not moving back here to live. At his words, I nodded, feeling a quiet sense of relief. Thank goodness he had no intention of sleeping in the room, but Mother said we must continue the Fu family line and bear heirs. Qin Shuyang snorted, if you want an heir, have one yourself. I could only guarantee that any child I bore would be mine. I couldn't guarantee it would be his. I sighed silently, turning to fetch the picture album my mother had prepared for me before my marriage. Husband, you have someone in your heart, and I will not make things difficult for you. Nor will I fail to respect your feelings, but the matter of heirs is of the utmost importance. I set the album on the table and unfolded it gently, about to call Qin Shuyang over to look when he startled me half to death. His nose was bleeding again, the blood dripping onto his fair chest, a shocking sight. What he said next was even more baffling. I was forced to look at one of these the day before the wedding. If you're not at ease, we can look at this one too, it's fine. He wiped his nosebleed with one hand and covered a certain part of his body with his sleeve, only to slump in defeat the second he saw what was in the album. Who are these women? 5. I introduced them to him one by one, all pure maidens from good families. This one has eyes like your beloved. That one has a voice like hers. I'd begged my mother to spend countless time and effort finding them all. Qin Shuyang clenched the album so hard his knuckles whitened, his face as black as a cauldron bottom. You are truly a virtuous wife, he ground out through gritted teeth. I smiled and nodded. It is only what a wife ought to do, to keep my body pure for the one I loved. I'd done far more than this. I'd even spent a small fortune to find out where Qin Shuyang's beloved was. If I could bring her back to the manor, I could get a divorce from Qin Shuyang. After the divorce, my grandmother and father-in-law would not force me to remarry anytime soon. And I'd have more time to wait for my beloved to return to the capital. Qin Shuyang seemed oddly satisfied with these substitutes, nodding with a smile. Very well. This is perfect, absolutely perfect. Husband, they're all staying in the side courtyard. Which one would you like to accompany you tonight? I glanced at a certain prominent bulge and added quietly, if you'd like all three together, that's fine too. However, the next moment, Qin Shuyang slammed the album to the ground hard. In a single motion, he pinned me down on the couch, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at me. Madam, I think your face bears a 5 or 6 resemblance to hers too. I froze, startled by him, unable to react for a long while. Qin Shuyang took a deep breath and called my name softly, Madam. But I would not be a substitute. With quick hands and eyes, I grabbed a handkerchief and scrubbed the powder and makeup off my face forcefully. Husband, it's my fault for trying a new makeup look today. For bearing a resemblance to her. I'll never wear this makeup again. With that, I stood up and walked to the door, hinting to him, it's late at night. I won't disturb your pleasure any longer. Qin Shuyang snorted coldly, his face dark, and stormed off with a flick of his sleeve. I heard he went back to the study that night, and even chased the 2 substitutes out. I understood, no matter how similar they were not her. It was only natural for him to be unable to accept it for the time being. 6. A few days later, I received word that Qin Shuyang's beloved had been found, and was even returning to the capital with the men I'd sent. I only heard she'd met with some trouble. I tidied myself up, planning to go see her first, but ran into Qin Shuyang at the flower gate. I smiled and greeted him, but he suddenly said, "Where are you going dressed so beautifully?" I glanced down at the plain clothes I'd changed into on purpose. Did he prefer such pale hues? I'd remember that and never wear such clothes again. Husband, I'm going out to meet a friend. He frowned and asked, who, a man or a woman? When will you be back at the manor? Before I could answer, he added, I have nothing to do today. I'll condescend to go with you. I looked at the anxious young servant behind him. Husband, go attend to your business first if you have it. Business? Who has business? I don't. He said that, but the young servant was blinking so fast he might have sparked a fire. But I'm very busy. With that, I ignored him and turned to leave. In the restaurant, I saw Qin Shuyan's beloved, Liu Qingxue. She was delicate and frail, covered in bruises. Before I could ask for details, Qin Shuyang burst in suddenly. His gaze swept over Liu Qingxue, then settled on me, his voice icy. How did these bruises happen? 7. Before I could answer, Qin Shuyang looked me up and down, his tone filled with concern. Madam, are you hurt? I'm fine. As for the bruises on Miss Liu's body, she should be the one to explain. Liu Qingxue sobbed and wept, and after a long while, finally blurted out the whole story. Her family had arranged for her to marry a wealthy widower. She'd thought the old man would dote on her, but he turned out to be a lecherous villain. He not only tormented her in bed, but also tried to force himself on her maids. The youngest was only 11, unable to bear it. Liu Qingxue had pleaded with him, only to be beaten black and blue. She'd escaped one midnight, and if my men hadn't chanced upon her looking for her, she would have been captured by the widower's men on the street that day. Qin Shuyan's hands clenched into fists in rage. Your legal mother clearly said you'd gone back to your hometown to visit relatives. Liu Qingxue's voice was hoarse from crying. At first I thought it was a visit too. I didn't realize until halfway that my legal mother had sold me for 100,000 taels of silver. They were too many, and we weak women were powerless to escape. I only got out of the manor thanks to my nanny and maids. I don't even know if they're alive or dead now. Qin Shuyan's brows furrowed deeply, and he slammed a fist on the table, making the teacups rattle. Qingxue, don't worry. Now that I know, I won't stand by and do nothing. I'll find your loyal servants, I swear I'll. His words were cut off by a deafening pounding on the private room door. A man's voice shouted outside, "Open up, hurry up. Liu Qingxue is my master's noble concubine, signed a contract of sale. You took her away without permission. This old man can report you to the authorities and have you all arrested." The hot-blooded Qin Shuyang could not stand such words. He snorted coldly, perfect timing. Striding to the door, he flung it open and kicked out hard. The man who'd shouted the loudest fell to the ground, tumbling down the stairs with a scream. There were many men outside, and seeing their leader felled, they raised the wooden sticks in their hands and charged forward without a word. Qin Shuyang fought them off with his guards. I pulled the terrified Liu Qingxue back to the corner, shielding her behind me. I knew no martial arts, so I only pulled out my hairpin and clenched it tight. Holding it to my chest in defense, a fierce-looking man suddenly lunged at us. I gripped the hairpin harder and screamed, "Help! Someone help!" Qin Shuyang reached us faster than my guards. I didn't even see his move. There was a scream, and I fell into his arms. Half my body leaned against him. His hand wrapped tightly around my shoulder. My heart raced inexplicably. My ears burned, and a warm, tingly sensation spread through my whole body. A familiar feeling suddenly surged in my chest, the same feeling I'd had when my beloved saved me all those years ago. The man Qin Shuyang had beaten back had a broken left arm, and stared at him with malice as the two sides faced off. "My master is the elder Zheng of Chuju. May I ask who you are, hero?" Qin Shuyan's eyes glinted with harshness. Qin Shuyang, heir to the Duke of Wen State. The man's face paled. With a gesture, the fighting men stopped at once, and he led them away in a hurry. 8. Back at the manor, I took out the portrait of my beloved. After all these years, his features had grown a little blurry, but the scene of him saving me still appeared in my dreams from time to time. Every time I woke up, the flutter in my heart lingered for a long time. I was certain he was not Qin Shuyang. So why did I feel the same way about Qin Shuyang? Was I a loose, frivolous woman? "Madam," Qin Shuyan's voice pulled me back to my senses. "Husband, why are you here?" Qin Shuyang pulled out a white jade bottle. "Stretch out your hand. I'll apply medicine for you." My wrist had swollen a little in the scuffle earlier. No need, it's just a little red, nothing serious. It's clearly red. Stretch out your hand. His gaze was insistent. I had no choice but to hold out my hand slowly. Qin Shuyang rolled up my sleeve gently, revealing a section of delicate, porcelain white wrist. His eyes went wide, and he froze for a long while. Husband. Qin Shuyang came to his senses, scooped some ointment onto his finger, and dabbed it on the two faint bruises on my wrist. Beneath the candlelight, half his side face was bright, half shadowed. It was the first time I'd looked at him carefully. So this man had such a handsome face, his features as fair as jade, his eyes as bright as stars, an innate elegance and nobility about him. I bit my lip and called his name softly. Iron. Qin Shuyan's hand stilled mid-application. What did you call me? Iron. Can't I call you that, if you don't like it? When did I say I didn't like it? He cleared his throat. Call me whatever you want. It's just a name. The injury on my wrist was not serious. But Qin Shuyang came to apply medicine every day, twice a day, morning and night. More punctual than a water clock. Iron. I'm already well. I don't need to put on this medicine anymore, right? Qin Shuyan's thumb stroked and massaged my wrist, and he muttered softly, why did it heal so fast? I didn't catch his words. What? I said you're indeed well, but we should apply it a few more times to make sure it's fully healed. 9. I received a letter. It said my beloved was in Chuju. To sort out my feelings, I had to go to Chuju. But I hadn't figured out how to tell Qin Shuyang yet. When I heard his elder cousin talking to him outside the study, I heard you went into the palace to beg for snow skin ointment, for your wife, remembering his earlier stubborn words. Qin Shuyang frowned and denied it. Of course not, I am using it myself. At that, his elder cousin smiled knowingly. For your little childhood sweetheart. Then, Qin Shuyang retorted at once. Not her. I said it's for me, myself. He ground out the last two words through his teeth. His elder cousin was stunned by his exaggerated reaction, shook his head and laughed. All right, it's for you. The man who refused to put on scar-removing ointment even when he had a knife cut on his hand is now begging for medicine in the palace for an almost invisible bruise. Qin Shuyan's cheeks flushed a little. What the hell are you here for? His elder cousin sobered up, pulled out a document and set it on the desk. The information you asked me to find on Elder Zheng of Chuju, and the Liu family's affairs, it's all here. Qin Shuyang flipped through the document. His elder cousin added, my wife and I have been busy with the matter of heirs lately. We can't spare the time. I can't go with you to Chuju. You'll have to go alone. Qin Shuyan's eyes widened in disbelief, shocked at how his cousin valued his wife over their friendship. His elder cousin patted him on the shoulder. You don't like your wife. You can't wait to stay away from her. I'm not like you. I can't bear to be away from my wife for a moment. I left quietly and went back to my room to order the maids to start packing my things. When Qin Shuyang came back, he looked sullen. I was a little confused. Husband, what's wrong with you? I have to go to Chuju. It'll take at least a month round trip. I nodded, the corners of my mouth lifting involuntarily. Good. Qin Shuyan's face darkened, a dangerous glint in his eyes. You're happy I'm leaving? I nodded instinctively. Qin Shuyang seemed to have all his energy drained from him, his face ashen as he trundled off to the adjacent study. Before dinner, I went to call him. He was holding his book upside down. Had he read it once and was reciting it? Husband, let's have dinner first. We can check if you have everything packed later. The maids had already packed several trunks and set them in the courtyard. Qin Shuyan's ashen face turned pitch black in an instant. He spoke, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Madam, what do you mean by this? Packing so quickly, are you hoping I leave tonight? Are you that eager to get rid of me, that unwilling to see me? I stared at him, utterly confused. Just then, a maid carried out the last trunk, the only one that belonged to Qin Shuyang. I bit my lip and met his gaze. Husband, do you think I've packed too much luggage? Qin Shuyang fell silent, frozen in place. I twisted my handkerchief and hung my head, my voice thick with grievance. If you find me a nuisance, then I won't go. I turned around, making to tell the maids to put the trunks away, only for Qin Shuyang to speak first. The road to Chuju is long. Have you packed enough clothes for the madam? Did you bring storybooks and snacks? What about the chess set? Sigh, no, this young master will check everything himself. Qin Shuyang tossed his book aside and bustled about, checking the trunks one by one. 10. When we set off the next day, his cousins' faces crumpled the second they saw me. They pulled Qin Shuyang aside. Aren't you going to Chuju to stand up for your beloved? Why take your wife with you? Qin Shuyang wore a look of great difficulty and sighed. My wife is far too clingy. She can't bear to leave my side for a moment. I have no choice. His cousin's wife rolled her eyes where no one could see. Then why did you carry her to the carriage when she couldn't get up this morning, and bring breakfast on board too? Couldn't you have left quietly? At that, the cousins looked at Qin Shuyang with a mix of disdain and utter inevitability. Qin Shuyang's face flushed red and then pale, in turns. He forced a laugh to cover his embarrassment. Ha ha ha, it's getting late. My wife needs to catch up on sleep. I won't chat any longer. The carriage set off. Qin Shuyang was eager to resolve his beloved's troubles and marry her as soon as possible. I was equally eager to see my own beloved. Neither of us had the heart for stop-and-go sightseeing, and we rushed all the way to Chuju. I heard my beloved Jiang Tingen now ran a martial arts school. I rummaged through my trunk and found the cloak he'd given me when he saved my life. I'd kept it carefully for years. Not only was it unblemished, but the tiger patterns embroidered in gold thread and gilded trim made it even more valuable than it had been back then. You even prepared a cloak for me, though Chuju is indeed a little colder than the capital. Qin Shuyang snatched the cloak from my hand and slung it over his shoulders. It was so large it all but swallowed him whole. I stared at the clearly oversized cloak and wiped the sweat from my forehead. This cloak doesn't fit well. I'll have someone buy you a new one, husband. Qin Shuyang tightened the cloak, tugging it this way and that to adjust it. No need. This one matches your clothes perfectly. Me, of course it matched. I'd picked out my outfit specially to see my beloved. Even my hairpin was carefully coordinated. A young servant reminded him with a stiff smile. Young master, this cloak on you, you think it looks good too. Good taste. This is what my wife prepared specially for me. Fearing I'd catch cold, we stepped outside and walked to the carriage. Husband, the sun is scorching today. Why not take off the cloak first? Sweating profusely, Qin Shuyang reluctantly unfastened the cloak, and a maid hurried forward to take it and tuck it away. Madam, I'll accompany you for a stroll. Before he could finish speaking, I'd already climbed into the carriage and told the driver, let's go. As the curtain fell, I said to Qin Shuyang, who was on horseback, husband, I want to wander around a little. I won't delay your business. 11. Inside the martial arts school, Jiang Tingen was teaching a group of children martial arts in the yard. The second he saw me, he stroked his beard and smiled. Madam, are you here to hire a bodyguard? Or, the man I'd longed for all these years was right in front of me. I was so overcome I nearly cried. Brother Jiang, don't you recognize me? Jiang Tingen studied me for a moment, pondered, then smiled. Madam, I beg your pardon for my poor eyes. When have we met? His eyes were sincere. No trace of pretense. He truly did not remember me. On second thought, I could hardly blame him. I'd snuck out of the manor to play when I was 10, and nearly been set upon by hooligans. It was Jiang Tingen who'd saved me. He'd held me in one arm and fought off the thugs with the other. I'd trembled with fear, but he'd thought I was cold, and taken off his cloak to wrap around me. Later, when I'd snuck out to look for him, he was already gone. I'd only managed to find out he was a wandering knight-errant, upholding justice wherever he went. 8 years had passed now, and he looked to be in his 30s. 8 years ago in the capital, You saved a young girl from a gang of hooligans. With that, I pulled out the cloak and held it out to him. Jiang Tingen did not recognize me, but he recognized the cloak the second he saw it. He took it and laughed heartily. It's kind of you to remember, and to bring it all the way back to me. Then he changed the subject. My wife stayed up all night making this cloak for me. She complained for ages after I gave it away. As he spoke, a plainly dressed woman walked out from the back hall. She looked at me, then at the cloak, and smiled. My husband has given away quite a few cloaks over the years. This is the first time anyone's brought one back. The lady ran her hand over the tiger patterns on the cloak and praised, "Your needlework is far better than mine." Jiang Tingen shook his head in disagreement. In my heart, no one's needlework, no matter how fine, can compare to the affection in my wife's stitches. The two of them stood there, holding the same cloak, talking as if no one else was there. I felt like an outsider. No, I had always been an outsider. My heart sank, an indescribable weight pressing down on my chest, and I hung my head involuntarily, only to spot a familiar shadow at my feet. The jade crown on the shadow was unmistakably Qin Shuyan's, the one he'd insisted I pick out for him. But why was he here? When had he arrived? And why wasn't he saying anything? "Madam, are you only here to return the cloak today?" Jiang Tingen's wife's voice pulled me back to my senses. When I looked up again, I'd schooled all my emotions into a poised smile. "Madam Jiang, I'm here for two things. First, to thank your husband and return the cloak. Second, to ask the martial arts school for a favor. My husband has come to Chuju on business, but even a mighty dragon is no match for a local snake. I'm worried for his safety, and I'd like to ask the school to send someone to protect him." As I spoke, footsteps sounded behind me. Qin Shuyang walked to my side, took my hand, and looked at me with tender eyes. "Thank you for planning for me, my lady." Seeing this, Jiang Tingen boomed, "In that case, please take a seat, both of you. Let's talk it over in detail." 12. With Jiang Tingen's help, Liu Qingshua's matter was resolved smoothly. She was, after all, a member of the Liu family, and already married into the Zheng household. It was impossible to take her away. Qin Shuyang went to see Elder Zheng in the capacity of her sworn brother, defending her both openly and covertly, and demanding that Elder Zheng stop harassing her. For the sake of the Duke of Wen State's manor, Elder Zheng promised not to trouble Liu Qingxua again, and to simply provide for her, her nanny and her maids. To prevent Elder Zheng from going back on his word, Qin Shuyang gave a sum of silver to Jiang Tingen, asking him to